So as we are becoming more conscious collectively, there are agendas of spewing misinformation about becoming awakened. And my messages tend to be a little lengthy, so I'm also practicing myself. So this is my inner kung fu of working with these videos into shortening my words and my meanings sometimes when I'm being led to. Other times, because I'm an educator, I tend to want to break down components, whatnot. So individually, as you're becoming more conscious, it's necessary because then you naturally start to plug in with those that you may never meet through the matrix of this world within that particular frequency of the way you're becoming conscious. Is you yourself, all by yourself. What happens is that you start raising the frequency and reprogram the natural organic matrix of the way we interact and connect as humans, all 7 billion of us, meaning that every single soul, every single person, everything that you do, everything that you choose not to do becomes programmed into the system of our human experience. So becoming more aware of that starts to expand your way of seeing. It starts to expand your observation abilities. It starts expanding your and attracting your gifts, whether it's financial, monetary, whether it's your gift of clairvoyancy, psychic abilities, whether it's the gift of being able to see even more empathically. As you start aligning yourself with the things that bring you joy, because you are becoming more conscious and it's making more sense to you, you're attracting more people around you that is like-minded or looking to understand your perspective or just simply want to be in your light. So now you're becoming more enlightened, meaning that you're now becoming hyper-aware, naturally speaking, of the light within you as you walk, because you start to observe. This is becoming more conscious. How you enter a room, a place, a store, whatnot, your job, and you start observing how people are impacted either positively or negatively based on the frequency that they're in. And you become more conscious that your light starts to disturb their shadows, and they didn't ask for that because they're not wanting to do the work, as an example, and so you start disturbing them. So now when they upset you, or you wonder why they're looking at you a certain way, and your older self would have been ready to fight or would have said something derogatory in return, say, yo, I'm not that person, dude, But now you're starting to understand the way people are working, and you start using that experience to go deeper into that inner computation of that language. You care less now of that person's conscious response to you, but more of what they're hiding or what they're not able to see within their subconscious. So a person who's becoming even more conscious is somebody that could see somebody within a matter of seconds if they choose to. They can compute their entire life, this other person in general, because energy does not lie. And you're starting to understand the language of the energy even deeper and more profoundly, and you're able to now see where that person is in a state. And we're not talking about truth or false. We're not talking about reading people's minds. We're not saying that. We're saying with how people walk. And for you to be able to do that with another soul, you need to understand as well, for those who are not becoming more conscious, that you would become more aware that for you to be able to see someone is because their subconscious already gave you permission to do so. Because the subconscious mind cannot lie. So your true unveiling self, if made conscious to you, is that you walk as a truth being, that you have nothing to hide whatsoever in the moment. We're not talking about specifics now. We're talking about energy. So as a human being, we naturally read and are able to communicate with each other's energy, because as you're becoming more conscious, you're understanding that that person that you're seeing as well is a version of you not yet understanding or seeing in the frequency that you've been working on. So if you're a teacher in school, why would you be upset that you trained hard at being a teacher for an elementary school, and you probably want to even as far as getting your master's degree, because this is like the water you swim in. And how are you going to get upset with an aspiring student, a student that wants to be a teacher, or a student that doesn't want to be a teacher, and they look at you like you're weird? How are you going to get upset with them? Because they're not interested in becoming a teacher, and they would be oblivious to your walk when they have no idea the deeper meaning and understanding and the work that you put in becoming an educator, right? Well, we're talking about now being a human being, you know, walking with all of your abilities, your gifts. There are some of us here who not only become more conscious, but understands their ability to respond, reverse responsibility to cultivate and culminate the gifts of being human, not just limited to the 5 senses, but intuition and inner communication. No longer seeing inner authority of the way you communicate within your inner journey and your outer authority of how you see yourself in the presence of others, and others see you and experience you based on their scope of experiences within their patterns and state of being. So now you have ascended, as you're more conscious, into seeing, having had seen the lower mind just like anybody else. It didn't disappear, but now you have new perspective, less filtering, more light, more language. And as a scholar that you are, you start to now amplify your gifts. Whether it's reading, whether it's singing, whether it's doing art, whether it's cooking, and whether it's being in business, whether it's being an attorney, and you're here now to understand why you decided to be an attorney, because you know you need to be part of the changing of a system of law, as an example. And you are the seed that's going to reform, recollaborate a new way, because you chose to study law. And the way you start to interpret differently, and the way you study it, like the black sheep of the law community, they may not have seen you yet because you've cloaked yourself and you look like just like everyone else, as an example in the story. That now as you start becoming more prolific in your experiences, you start to now integrate. That's true higher frequency integration. When you have integrity, it means that you understand your integration system and you know how to integrate it into the system of what you're working with, whether it's through family, through a friend, through a relationship, through work criteria, or the example I just mentioned, an aspiring lawyer that's about to change the entire system. That is having integrity to the highest regard. That is reprogramming the term integrity. That is using it. You see, as an educator now you can speak about it. But you could now speak about remembrances of how you had zero integrity when you were young or recent years, and how it impacted and affected you and everyone else, and how you started to accumulate all of this added extra karma that you needed to now transmute out of your system through prayer, through workings, through servitude, through meditation, through changing your diet, you know, in so many different ways. You started to shed that experience, but the experience just disappeared? No, because now in an opportunity as a lawyer who has this high IQ of high level integration into a system of law, seeing things in a whole new light, you yourself, you now can use all of these experiences, right, as language in such a way people will think you're a genius. And the only difference between your genius mind and the other person that doesn't think that they're a genius is that they haven't yet aligned themselves, that's all. Or maybe they do and they are, but they are working with their inner shadows or their inner demons, and they don't think they are, so this is how they're walking with that energy field. You know, to each is to own. That's their process, and you are in yours. So as you're becoming more conscious, you're shaping and remolding the entire planet, the entire human experience, even to those who are not aware, even to those who will never meet you on the other side of the world. Because you, being more conscious now, start to work with the symphony of the interconnectedness of our integration system as humans we are. That's a frequency. Now, we just changed the conversation from the frequency of law, and now we're talking about or speaking about the human subconscious, or the metaconscious collective. Now, how do you know you are becoming awakened? I didn't say awakened. And I don't like, you know, this is a cross comparison because it's so much more complex than being more conscious and being awakened, because it's not black and white. However, there is an agenda of these distortions that are making it so to keep you always having to make a decision, to make you feel like, now you're awakened, so because I'm awakened, it's important to be a man. You display more stoicism because people won't get it anyway, so you might as well walk stoically. That is ridiculous. That's actually a lower frequency than becoming more conscious. That's actually being more conscious. Actually, it's a combination of becoming more conscious and being stuck inside your ecosystem and not being conscious or aware that you're dead right in the center of your entire ecosystem, this entire creation. You're so powerful, you created your entire virtuous reality. So now you're walking as a king of that reality, which is a power, but becomes limited because it is a superimposed soul that may not be mature enough to know, and because they live as the king of the center of their ecosystem, their belief system, because they might be old souls and have experience and have lived a very hard life, so they will know exactly what I'm talking about right now and would actually completely agree with me, or maybe completely disagree with me, because they and have the verbiage and the ability to be able to constructively explain how the mind works and how souls work, how souls contract work. However, it's limited to the third state of seeing, is person being more conscious of their ecosystem. So they're dead center and stuck within that system, which is necessary for them. So again, if you're higher in consciousness and your experiences, you would see someone like that, you will observe them, and you would not integrate within their system. You would just see them through like running water, because you know that in their time, they may be working on something that's so huge. I would not spend my time seeing them in the way that they're displaying themselves in front of other people on social media, as an example, right? Because you know that there's a bigger picture. They just might not be aware of it. Now becoming more awakened. It's almost like you don't have a choice, because you have elevated yourself to a level of consciousness, and you opened up doors that society, your family, religious conditioning, political conditioning, social norms, and the entities that people are not aware of, that actually created this system of entertainment. You know what I'm talking about. They not only did not expect you to make it this far, they basically did not expect you to make it this far at this time, for the most part. So now the awakening, and you start going beyond the matrix of your five senses, seeing, hearing, believing, all the systems and memories that are attributed to your experiences in this life, that all of those memories of this life and you as a person, your identity, are within the memory banks that have been computed or received via your five sensory systems, right? Hearing, seeing, smelling, right? Experiencing. Your nervous system. Now you're starting to see yourself expanded beyond your physical etheric body. You're starting to look into higher fields. And it oftentimes creeps in through your dreams. And as you start to go deeper, you start to have these deeper, now more profound, intimate conversations with your guides, your higher self, God within. You know now how everybody's been trying to get you to worship a God without. What's the opposite of within? Out, as in the God out there. You know now that energy gets directed into a very conscious being that was created by the human collective, because we have the ability to create, because everything that you see right here that doesn't look like this, that does not look like this, naturally speaking, was created by humanity. So if your front yard, your backyard, your job doesn't look like that, Well, that was a creation. That was based on the creation of most likely anti-God, anti-Christ, anti-yourself. Because yourself is a natural being. Yourself is a being that honors and loves all things, such as this tree right here, such as the birds. And to be mindless from that, to create something so that you can have property and some grid work that's only going to make your job richer and put money in your bank so that you could retire to do what? Just to vacation in places that's only going to consume you through commercialism, through marketing. Now you understand? That's entertainment. That's the business of being a human. So now you're seeing beyond those veils. That's becoming more conscious. When you're becoming awakened, as an example, these are the possible symptoms, or the symptoms that you will definitely be experiencing. Death. You may be experiencing death of people around you, physical, emotional, horrible breakups. Like the book of Job, if you read scripture, you start experiencing that within your own personal experience. Everything that's attached, or that has been attached to the non-godly within, the non-Christ like activations and levels of consciousness that you were experiencing that has nothing to do with that, they will naturally shed. Not separate than a snake. The skin starts to shed. And because you're unaware of the nature of yourself, you're unaware of the dogma of how they taught about animal serpents, such as reptilians, such as the snake per se, and not looking deeper into the symbolism, such as this is the year of the snake, 2025, then you will suffer greatly, because it was designed for you to suffer when you started to go beyond the matrix, the box of thinking and experiencing and living that was created by humanity. So the death and the experiences that you're going to lose is going to be anything or anyone that's not aligned to your calling. The biggest key of knowing that you are now in your awakening process from being, let's say, higher conscious, or being a higher conscious being, which to me they work in tandem. Once you are in the awakening process, it means that your baggage is just you, depending on what your calling is. So the key is your calling. Once you awaken to your true divine calling, then you have no choice but to expand and dismantle anything, anyone, circumstance related to anything, financial, physical, emotional, it doesn't matter, mental, family, the same. You have to separate yourself not from them, but from the parts of you that no longer exist. And the suffering comes because you're fighting for it to be somehow being kept in your body. And it's not your fault, it's not because of you, it's because there are beings that don't want you to expand. They're not conscious. Because when you start changing, then they lose that version of you that no longer exists. And you're aware of that. You're aware that that is the only way that they're going to be able to experience and see you. And then you're stuck with a decision. And ultimately the decision of an awakened being is the most painful one, is that now you must not only eliminate those bridges of how people communicate with you from your past, especially your past. Especially if they're not able to expand or ascend in their way into, I don't want to say support you, but to supporting your change. Because they understand change, or they're ready or curious enough to accept change. And if that conversation can occur easily, in a sense where it would not lower your frequency, then becoming awakened means that you have to go through an actual death. not just a soul death, not just an ego death, because there's no other way. Every other way that you're creating is a way slowing down that route, that walk. You're mazing it. You're creating more of that labyrinth that you're trying to dismantle. Labyrinth, think of like a maze from A to B, you know, inside, outside. You're changing octaves of going from that labyrinth, and now kind of like remembering what labyrinths really mean as to that key of experience. Let's say that labyrinth of becoming a human, and how and knowing that labyrinth was kind of like a key code system that was created for you to experience this particular level of humanity, so that you could communicate with other people within their frequency. Once you remember that you did that as a cloak, you cloaked yourself. Maybe you didn't remember before, but now you're remembering now. As you unveil yourself, because you have no choice, because you'll suffocate, you go through grief, you go through a higher sense of crises, you go through moments of, for some people or many people, it could feel like you need to commit suicide, and you know you're not going to do it, but it's that same feeling. You may want to hit the bottle, you know, if you're into certain addictions, not just sexual addictions, then you may end up doing that, or wanting to do that, and you find yourself doing all these things. You may start jumping into relationship to relationship to relationship. I don't know. It's different for everyone. And that becomes the chaos necessary, prepping you to the next level. Just like medicine, that chaos of these uninvitable things that you end up doing, or that's being done to you, such as narcissistic relationships per se, you attracted that in your subconscious mind. All of the horrible things that you attract in your awakening process, as an example, or that you don't think that you attracted, that you became victimized by, were actually your higher self making sure that you completely awaken. Because once you do, then you're going to realize the language of how things are attracted into your life. Once you understand this one final piece, and you've heard it before, and if you haven't, well, here we go. You have to know this. Everything's happening for you and not to you. Everything is happening for your highest good and for the greatest good of all beings, the same.